more experience with this whole drag and drive scene than I do. Admittedly, we went to our first, or I went and participated kind of intensely for the first time at Sick Week a couple of months ago, kicked off in Bradenton and went on kind of the full pull with Tom Bailey and company until I almost ripped my arm off, but that's another story. I couldn't get over. That was, you've been going to these deals, participating in them, competing in them for a long time. And I don't know that I didn't know what I was missing, to be honest. It's hard to put that whole scene into words, but the intensity, the camaraderie, the general fun having, it was probably the most fun I've ever had drag racing, to be honest.
It's a completely different format than traditional drag racing, right? So if you're a class guy, bracket guy, whatever, it's very reminiscent of, Bonneville Soft Flats, right? It's
more of like a challenge against, it's
right.
Like you versus you versus you versus everybody.
And there's time in between. So, you've got this camaraderie because, not everybody gets to race Bonneville. A lot of people talk about, but they don't, let alone attend it, as far as racing it, very rare. So, Drag Week was really hard to get into. And it's no surprise it's structured a lot like Bonneville because, Freiberger, he's the one who came up with the concept. And he's huge on the Bonneville Soft Flats. So it's no surprise that it followed a very similar concept. It's obviously worked out there in the salt, and it's working in drag racing.
It's really working. Are you at all surprised? I know the NMCA this year, at least on a couple of occasions, have like some tag team type of deals going on with Tom Bailey and the Sick Week guys. I mean, are you at all surprised to see the explosion of popularity for this drag and drive type of stuff? We've got, Rocky Mountain Race Week, got Hot Rod Drag Week, obviously the OG event, Sick Week, the Midwest Drags, and I believe there's a handful of other smaller ones, and it doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised it took this long.
Wow.
To get that. I want to say the first one was 2005 or 2006.
I think that's right.
And, I think it took a while to really infiltrate a lot of the different markets. And I'm really shocked that it was like the best kept secret for the longest time. The first time I actually got to do it was in 2016 with my buddy Mike Javanis. And, it was, I'd followed it for so many years and it was completely different than anything I'd ever followed. 1320 Video and Hot Rod did great coverage of it. And I was like, man, I can't believe it's taken this long.
Yeah.
To get out there, and I felt like, we covered it a couple different media outlets on that 16 run. And I felt like it really captured a lot of the Mustang market from there. So I don't think a lot of people, they knew of it, but they weren't familiar with it.
It's, for me, the whole scene, it's hard to put it, I don't know it's hard to put it into words because, you've got all the standard drag racing stuff, burnouts, fast cars, and nice stuff. I was really impressed by the quality of cars because when you think about having to go beat these things up and down the highways and byways of America and carry all your tools with you and pull a trailer and all that, you kind of think this stuff's going to be a little rough around the edges, a little worse for wear. There's certainly that exists, but by and large, this is really nice cars, really well-kept stuff. And so there's all the things that you see at a typical drag race, but there's just a different feeling in the air. And I think it's this optimism, maybe because you're not as wrapped up, it would seem, with what everybody else is doing. Like if you go to the NMCA, if you roll up to the NMCA national event coming up in a couple of weeks at Rockingham Dragway out in North Carolina, one of my all-time favorite racetracks, by the way. I think from a competition standpoint, you're looking to see who's there and who's qualified where. And there's a lot of pressures, and I'm not saying that doesn't exist in the drag and drive scene, but it's more about like, what can I accomplish this week? It doesn't really matter what anybody else does. I'm here. It reminds me of like working out. It's like going to the gym to see how much you can bench press. You're competing almost exclusively with yourself. And there's obviously an air of competition. And I think Sick Week was the first one to institute some rules that tried to put more of an onus on the actual competition. Like your time doesn't count if you sit there and just you wait forever to stage, right? Or if you have a really bad light, things like that. They were trying to do things, I think, to make the on-track product a little bit better, some more side-by-side competition. But still, this is like man and machine versus man and machine. It's a really interesting thing. And it's, I like it.
It's Tom Bailey, is they like to say, for the adventure. They have a,
100%.
one a little bit more explicit than that, but I would say it's definitely an adventure. I mean, it's going into the first one in 16. I remember my buddy Mike and I, we were just like, we thought it would just be about drag racing. We're like, oh yeah, you do a bunch of runs, you hop in the car, you drive to the next place. Well, like the drag racing was like that, and the rest
You're
of
so
it
right.
was the navigation, the fuel stops where you see everybody who's on tour, and you're doing like these backcountry roads. So it's only drag week people and like very few locals, and the adventure of it is great. And then you get to the hotel, and who's thrashing on something, and who's it's basically everyone just hanging out in the parking lot drinking and working on cars or talking about cars. So it's definitely unique, definitely different than any other type of drag racing event for sure.